If you're nearing the end of your pregnancy, you're exhausted, you're eager to meet your little one, you might be looking for any possible way to get your labour started. Now, before you turn to Google, let's explore together which of those natural methods are suggested to work and whether they're worth trying. I've got a separate video with all of the different approaches that you can try to get labour started naturally, but in this video, we're going to specifically focus on the foods and drinks that are suggested to encourage labour. So I'm Brooke, I'm an obstetrics doctor, and we're going to dive into what the evidence actually says about the effectiveness of each of these options. And I've included the sources and references in the description of this video. So raspberry leaf tea has been traditionally used or recommended for someone trying to get into labour because of the belief that it tones the uterus, potentially leading to more efficient contractions during labour. And some studies suggest that it might shorten how long labour lasts and reduce the need for medical interventions. How do you drink it? Well, red raspberry leaf tea is sold as loose dried tea leaves, and that tea is supposed to be a good source of magnesium and calcium and antioxidants. Now, there's no official recommendations on how much to have, but 1 to 3 cups daily of brewed raspberry leaf tea is most common, and people should really start taking this after 36 weeks if they're going to try it. However, it's important to note that whilst raspberry leaf tea might prepare your uterus for birth, we don't have any conclusive evidence that it actually works to get labour going. We've got no human studies that show any conclusive data that any of those health benefits are actually supported in the literature. But this systematic review, which didn't show any significant effects, no significant benefit, but also no significant harm. So we generally regard raspberry leaf tea as safe. So yeah, your midwife might suggest it if you're desperate to get labour going, but the benefits are anecdotal. They're not supported by clinical evidence. As with any supplement, I want you to speak to your healthcare provider before you start it, especially if you're having a complicated pregnancy, if you've had a previous cesarean or preeclampsia or a breech baby, for example. So if you tried it, let me know below. Next up, dates. Will eating dates in the final weeks of your pregnancy actually get your labour started? Well, yes, consuming dates in those final weeks of pregnancy has been associated with getting labour started spontaneously without needing an induction. So there's this study that was published in the Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology, and it found that women who ate 6 dates a day in the last 4 weeks of pregnancy were more likely to experience spontaneous labour and have a more favourable delivery outcome, meaning that they have a vaginal birth without necessarily needing an instrumental or a caesarean. So dates are rich in natural sugars and nutrients. They are a healthy snack, but it is advisable to actually discuss your choice for eating dates with your healthcare provider, especially if you've got gestational diabetes, because you don't want to add to your sugar load of the day. If you do want to try it, we suggest 6 dates per day from 36 weeks onwards. There's another more recent systematic review and meta-analysis, which is the best sources of evidence that we have, better than a single study. And it does show that date fruit can shorten the end of pregnancy, reduce the need for having an induction of labour, and make labour progress more quickly with a lower risk of hemorrhage. So all great news. However, the evidence still wasn't that reliable, so we need more trials to prove it. But yes, this one I would say is worth trying. Next up, pineapple. Now, some people suggest that eating pineapple core can help you to bring on labour. Pineapple contains an enzyme called bromelain, which is thought to soften the cervix and stimulate muscle contractions. However, the amount of bromelain in a single pineapple is relatively low, and most of it's found in the core, which is more difficult to eat. Current research does not support pineapple as an effective means to induce labour. Also, consuming a lot of it may lead to digestive discomfort. Next up, papaya. Now, unripe papaya contains latex, which can cause uterine contractions in animal studies. However, ripe papaya does not contain significant amounts of latex, and there's limited scientific evidence to support using papaya, whether it's ripe or unripe, to induce labour in humans. So no, this time I'd say approach this fruit with caution. Eat it if you want to, but don't eat in excess, and consult your doctor if you're really trying to use this to get yourself into labour. Next up, spicy foods. One of the commonest old wives' tales, go and eat that curry and it's going to get labour started. Well, the idea that spicy foods can induce labour stems from this belief that they can stimulate the digestive system and that in turn might stimulate your uterus. There's some evidence to suggest being cautious with excessively spicy foods during pregnancy, and this study actually showed that it was associated with preterm labour. So if you have spicy foods as part of your diet, it could stimulate preterm labour. However, we don't have any actual evidence that supports eating spicy curry at the end of pregnancy will help to get your labour started. Also, eating spicy foods can give you some heartburn or digestive discomfort, which is anyway more common at the end of pregnancy. And we don't have any belief that it's actually going to affect whether your labour gets started earlier and how it progresses. So I'd say Eat curry if you like it, but don't worry if it's not your favourite, I wouldn't try this one. Next, castor oil. Now, castor oil has been used to induce and accelerate childbirth since ancient Egyptian times. The precise way it works is not really known, but it's probably due to an increase in the production of prostaglandins. So castor oil is a strong laxative and has been used with the intention of inducing labour. Some studies have suggested that it might increase the likelihood of your labour starting within 24 hours. However, its use is controversial because it does have those unpleasant side effects like nausea, vomiting and diarrhoea, and that can even lead to dehydration. This meta-analysis showed that consuming a single 60 ml dose of castor oil orally is effective for cervical ripening, so getting your cervix ready for labour, and actually getting labour started, so like inducing your labour. However, it can potentially be dangerous because it can give you rapid contractions that can potentially distress your baby. So we only recommend that if you're going to try castor oil, it should only be used with medical supervision and with monitoring. Please don't just take this at home. Speak to your healthcare provider before even considering castor oil as an option to get your labour going. Now, herbal supplements like black cohosh and evening primrose oil are sometimes suggested to induce labour. However, again, scientific evidence supporting their effectiveness is very limited and they may have potential side effects. Finally, rather than choosing any one food to get labour started, this study actually showed that skipping 1 or 2 meals a day after 37 weeks was associated with someone actually going into spontaneous labour. But they were unable to rule out a reverse causality. That means we don't know if those people skipped meals because they were going into labour or they went into labour because they skipped their meals. So, in conclusion, while the idea of using natural foods and drinks to get labour started is really appealing, it's important to be careful about which ones you choose and approach these methods with caution. The scientific evidence supporting their effectiveness is limited. Yes, eating dates is actually a good idea and unlikely to cause any harm. Castor oil definitely can induce labour, but it's a risky one and shouldn't be used at home when you're alone. And the rest of those options we've described are unlikely to cause harm, but not really have any benefit either. So always talk to your healthcare provider before you try any of these natural induction methods so that they can help to ensure that they're safe for you and your baby. And remember, usually we do expect your little one to arrive when they're ready, which can be any time from 37 to 42 weeks. Although it's a very frustrating sentence to say, oh, the baby will come when the baby wants to, and the last month of pregnancy feels for you like it takes 200 years, it is still important to be cautious before trying any new options. So thank you for watching, and let me know below if you've got any questions or any other foods or drinks that I didn't cover.